Today, we're talking about if the Chicago Bulls did enough to avoid the play-in this upcoming season. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Matas Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And we are talking about if the Chicago Bulls did enough to escape the play-in this upcoming season. And so, look, I think that this is a yes and a no, but I think it is more yes than no. And so let's start with the yeses here. And so I think that the first thing that the Bulls did that really is going to help their chances is that they kept the band together. And so I'm talking about getting Josh Giddey back here now. You pair that back with Kobe White and Matas Buzelis, who's set to take another step forward this season. And I think that you're starting in the right direction, because I think that this team is going to pick up where they left off last season, simply because you have, all those pieces back. You didn't change over the roster like that. And I do feel like that another year in this system is going to help this team. And so when they go into training camp, they're going to be much more comfortable than they were a year ago with the shortened shot clock, or however else Billy Donovan decides to really teach that. I think that they're going to be very comfortable offensively. And I also think, too, they are going to be more comfortable when it gets down to game time situations and understanding where they need to go with their reads and things like that, which is going to help this team as far as cutting down turnovers. And so that could be huge when you're talking about getting some more wins and things like that. So keeping the band together is the first point as to why I think that this team is going to head out of the play-in situation. And next, when you just look at what they went out and they re-signed here. And so I love the fact that they bring back Tre Jones. I think that really Tre Jones and the way that he played last season, it just made it to the point where the Bulls were probably thinking, okay, we can move off of Lonzo Ball and we can feel comfortable with that. And so I'm not saying that Tre Jones is Lonzo Ball, but he brings that same type of point guard presence to the second unit. You can mix him in there with the first unit if need be. So if somebody does go down, he can stagger minutes too as well. So that'll help you as you're transitioning through quarters and things like that. So Tre Jones, he's going to bring a lot, from this bench, and he's definitely going to be a valuable piece. And so I think him being in this system, for the entire year, the confidence that he got last season, I think he's going to help out just about everybody out there, because he's a guy that will find, the bigs out there who are going to be available, roaming the paint. He will also get the ball ahead, to players so they can finish on the break. And then when you need to get into half court sets and things like that, Tre Jones is a very good point guard. And so this is why I think that this is going to be, just really an underrated pickup for this team. And I think that it helps them for their bottom line, which you need that calming hand when you get into games where they're tight and things like that. And so Tre Jones will help this team hopefully get some more wins and get out of the play-in. And so next, look, I think that this team got better defensively. And I want to start with Ayo Dosunmu. And so, look, I know Ayo Dosunmu has been with the team. I totally get that. And this is probably a bit of a hot take, but I think Ayo Dosunmu coming back fully healthy is almost like the Bulls going out and getting a free agent this offseason. I really do. I think that that's how big his impact is going to be, because he's going to come back. He's super motivated, and you just know what you get with him defensively. I don't think that we have ever questioned what we are going to get from Ayo Dosunmu. And I honestly think that really we probably didn't get a chance to see what he really could have done with this offensive system. And so I think that if he gets a chance to start or come off the bench, I think that he is going to be set to take off. I love the fact that you do not have to run a play for him because his defense is that good. And this team needs that identity. And so just imagine what would have happened if you would have had a healthy Ayo Dosunmu last season. That could have made the difference as far as getting some more wins here. And so I think that Ayo Dosunmu coming back healthy is going to be huge for this team. And next, look, you got him a running mate when you traded for Isaac Okoro. Look, I think that he is also going to provide just a defensive punch for this team. And look, I know that they are going to be challenged with the interior defense. But I'll say this. Between those two players out there roaming around, they are going to cause a lot of chaos, and just really get this team extra possessions. I think that you're going to see just a lot more hustle and things like that. And like I said, I think that between these two players, with the identity that they can bring defensively for the Bulls, look, I think that you can really pencil this team in to get some more wins, because you're talking about getting some more steals, turnovers, just making it tough for opposing teams to just get into their offense. And that definitely makes a difference. I don't care who you have on your team, because if you have star power on your team and you're loaded like the Celtics or the Bucks, I'm just naming off teams like that, you have to have a defensive presence. And I feel like that these two players are going to bring it for the Bulls. And I think that that would be enough to help them push out of the play-in. And then next, when you look at the center position, look, the Bulls have a guy that can get you a double-double. And so I know that Vooch struggles on the defensive end, which we're going to talk about that in a moment. But the bottom line is Vooch is a reliable double-double. He shot the basketball extremely well last year, and he showed you that he could play with a faster tempo, which really, to me, I would be excited about that, because he excelled last season, and that was the first season, with this new offense. And so now, more comfortable. He knows exactly what he's going to get with Josh Giddey. He knows what he's going to get now with Kobe White being, the primary scorer and things like that. And so I think that he settles in a little bit more and he can focus, because look, he is on the final year of his contract. And I think that Vooch is the type of guy that he wants to go out there and just prove things. And so I think that he's set to have a really big year on the offensive end of the floor. And so let's see if he can get a little bit better defensively. But again, with the perimeter defense that he's going to have around him, maybe that erases a lot of the mistakes that Vooch would make there defensively. And so I think that that is another key piece here, with Vooch being able to get you, buckets in the half court and things like that. And so that's going to be huge for this team. And so next, I think some other stuff to really think about with this team that maybe helps them trend upward is going to be the second year with Kevin Huerter, and then also to Zac Collins. I think that Kevin Huerter definitely came on at the end of the season, or once he got past the first couple games with this team. And I kept saying it. I think that he's more like the player that we saw with the Atlanta Hawks. And that's huge, because if you get that type of Kevin Huerter, that is certainly going to help you, because you're talking about a guy that can stretch the floor, has a high basketball IQ. And so he's not going to beat you that way. He's only going to help you defensively. He's solid. And he's been with a team that has gone deep into the playoffs. And so, that gives you that veteran presence that you need, because you also need that type of, identity as you're trying to push forward, and just try to take it to a level that you haven't been before. You do need players that have been there, and Kevin Huerter has done it. And so I think between him and Zac Collins, they take a step forward this year. And then lastly, I think this is a bit of just a mystery on this one, but if Noa Essengue can go ahead and have the same type of season that Matas Buzelis had, and so this is something that has been floated out there, and I think it's possible, especially when you hear that he has the same type of approach as Matas Buzelis and really is locked in and trying to get better like that. Like, I know he's a bit more raw, but still, I think he could be a player that can help you perhaps in year one. And I think that that's something that, teams are probably not thinking about, but it would help the Bulls and their bottom line, which is as far as getting out of this play-in situation. And so next, just looking at the reasons why I think that this team may not have done enough, just going back to just the first or this last point with Vooch. And so just going back to this. And so with Vooch, I'll say this. I mean, did the Bulls go out and get a center of the future? No, they didn't do that. Did they go out and, perhaps add a player that would give them some defensive presence inside? They did not do that. So, but they did take care of things on the perimeter. And so I would say that that is one reason why you could maybe look at this and say, man, I don't know if the Bulls did enough there. Next, look, I think you could look at this and say, okay, well, there was no major trades done or anything like that. Maybe some feel like, hey, this team needs to get a major star in order for them to get into the playoffs. And I'm not necessarily, agreeing with that. I think that this team actually, as constructed, it would be good enough to perhaps get into the play-in situation, because I think that you also have to think about it like this. The Eastern Conference did take a little bit of a hit because look, the Pacers are not going to have Halliburton. You don't have Dame with Milwaukee as well. And so, I mean, those are two teams that we know, that situation is going to be a little bit different. And so, there's a chance there. And then, for the people out there that have picked the Sixers, you really don't know what you're going to get with that. So between that and then the Miami Heat, we know that they're always tough, but I'm not sure that they maybe have enough this season. And so I think that the Bulls can definitely slide in there if they can take care of business, do the little things like that, because they do have a young core that is back in the building here, that has been together, and they finished very well. And so those are some of the things that I'll point out with why, possibly they may not have enough. But you do have to give AK some credit here because he does have this team positioned very well to really be a major player in next season's free agency. He did not give away any picks, and so he has his picks there as well. And so this team is positioned very well. It's just, can they take care of business this season? I think this is going to be the season where definitely you see the Bulls evaluate a lot of players, especially with these expiring contracts and things like that. But I think that they can make some noise. I think that they can get into the playoffs. So anyway, you guys let me know in the comments, did the Bulls do enough this offseason to get them out of the play-in situation and get them into the playoffs? And so, as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.